All right, listen up, because today is the day. I'm going to show y'all how to make a old nasty southern pot of collard greens. But first things first, I'm going to show y'all how to make sure y'all are cleaning y'all greens properly. Because I'm a little bit worried that y'all are out here watching some of these videos on TikTok and YouTube on how to make collard greens, and they ain't showing y'all how to clean your greens. And ain't nobody got time for no muddy greens. So, I have roughly about 3 to 4 bunches of collard greens here. I'm making a pretty small batch. Now look, whether you choose to get your collard greens from out of the Glory Greens bag, or if you get yours fresh like I have mine, no matter what, they need to be cleaned. No matter what, no matter how pretty they look, they need to be cleaned. I am telling you, if you skip the step of cleaning your greens, you are going to end up with mud, dirt, and damn bugs inside of your pot of collard greens, and ain't nobody got time for that. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your sink is sterilized and cleaned. If you don't feel comfortable cleaning your greens inside of your sink, that's totally fine. Make sure you have yourself a large enough bowl that you can do all of this in a bowl. The next thing you want to do is get yourself your green, and you are going to remove the thick stem from the green. Now, the stem itself does offer a lot of nutrients, but the problem is that it takes way too long to get tender. So I typically like to remove mine. If you would like to keep the stem in yours, what I would suggest is still remove it the exact same way that you see me doing right here, and then chop them up and then add them to the pot, but I personally don't do that. And as you guys can see, after I remove that stem, I just simply roll mine up and I just tear mine. Ain't nobody got time to be sitting down with no damn knife or scissors and doing all of that. It's not that deep. Just rip them up and just go on ahead and throw them into the sink. And you want to make sure that you're doing this to every last pot of greens. This is the reason why, our great-grandmothers and our great-grandfathers, or whoever it was that was in the kitchen cooking around this time of year, was always tired. Because it takes time and patience to make sure that this stuff is properly cleaned. Y'all, this stuff comes from the ground, okay? It is a root vegetable, okay? So therefore, every bug, snail, worm, all of it is going to be crawling all over it. So you've got to make sure that you are taking time to fully inspect it. And also by doing this, you're able to really make sure that there aren't any bugs on them. Because if you go to a farmer's market and get them where they haven't been, treated with a bunch of, extra, pesticides and, all that other stuff or chemicals that they spray on them to kill them off, you're likely going to find bugs on them because they're organic. And that is okay, because you're going to take this time to properly make sure that you are cleaning them. So you're going to continue to repeat this process. Now, what I personally like to use in my collard greens to clean mine is kosher salt. Now, the reason why I like to use coarse kosher salt is because, in my personal opinion, if you're just using the regular old, table salt, the granules in that are just way too small. And you're not going to really have anything that can be used as an abrasive. And by abrasive, I mean you need something that's kind of like the grain of like a rock. You want something big and hard so that as you're rubbing those leaves together, it will break down any of the excess dirt that is on the leaves. That is very, very, very important. And I know y'all are probably thinking, Tobias, you're just being OCD or you're just doing too much. But I'm telling you right now, if you've ever been to somebody's home and you had their collard greens and it wasn't clean, you see that right there on the screen? You see that? You see that? You see that? Yeah. See, that's what happens when you just go on ahead and skip the steps, okay? You end up with that type of stuff in your pot. And ain't nobody got time for that, okay? So this is the reason why I'm saying take your time, sit down, have the kids, your grandkids come on over and tell them come sit down. Make sure they wash their hands and they can help you rip them up while you're fully inspecting them. You want to make sure that you fill up your sink with cold water. You do not want to start the cooking process, so don't use lukewarm water. Don't use hot water. You want it to be nice and cold so that the leaves themselves can stay nice and crisp. Now back to the subject of the salt. Again, the reason why I like to use the kosher salt is because I want to make sure that it has an abrasive of some kind. The more I can feel the granules of that salt in my hand, the more that I know the likelihood of the dirt and the mud and all of the grit being rubbed off will be successful, okay? So that's the reason why I like to do that. You are going to repeat the process of cleaning your greens until that damn water runs clear. Now, that process, depending on how many greens you're cleaning at the time, can take anywhere between 3 to 4 times, okay? It does not matter. if you are doing it and that water is still brown, that means them greens ain't clean. I'm telling you right now. So continue the process. And for everyone that's concerned about, the salt going into the water, it is not going to make your greens salty at all. Because what I like to do is every single time that I go in with the salt, I also add in roughly about 1/4 of a cup or so of some white vinegar to my water. I'm going to repeat this step multiple times until I can start to tell that the water is running clear. At the last time that I go in to clean my greens, when I could tell, okay, the greens are getting kind of clear, I do not add any salt and I do not add any vinegar. So that way, the last time that you run through cleaning them, it'll be in nothing but just water. So that way you're rinsing off all of the excess salt, okay? So we've gone through the step on how to properly clean them. Remove the stem, inspect the leaves, rip them up, add in kosher salt, white vinegar. Repeat that step multiple times until the water is running clear. At the last time when it's running clear, only use plain water so that you can rinse off all of the salt. At that point, your greens are now good and clean, and now we can go on ahead and get ready to move over to the pot. Now, for my collard greens, I like to use ham hocks. You can use smoked turkey necks if you would like. I'm using ham hocks in this year's recipe. Now, I'm going to put these in my pot here. Now, I like to make sure that I add in a nice handful of garlic. I cover it up with just enough water to make sure that the ham hocks are covered. Now, there's two things I like to add to my pot that most people don't, which are carrots and celery. They add a nice bit of natural sweetness to the stock. The carrots and the celery are going to be removed. They're not going to be in the final dish, so don't go stressing yourself out about that. I also like to add in shallots and about 2 tablespoons of the Better Than Bouillon chicken base. I allow that to cook for about 3 hours or until those ham hocks are nice and tender. I remove everything from the pot except for the stock itself, and then I go and I shred out the meat from the ham hocks, okay? Again, the carrots, the onions, and the celery are not going to be in the final dish. That was just to add good flavor to the stock. As y'all can see, that stock right there is already jam-packed. Once you got all of that removed, add in those deliciously clean greens back to your pot. Once they start at you see that water? Huh? You see that? You see that? Yeah, that's clean water. That's how you know I did what I was supposed to do. Once they start to cook down, you can add in about 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of both garlic powder and onion powder. Add in black pepper to your liking. I like to add a little kick, so I add in a few dashes of crushed red pepper flakes. I add in 3 capfuls of apple cider vinegar. Don't use white vinegar. It ain't got no flavor. I add in 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of sugar. No, that is not going to make your greens sweet at all. That is simply just going to cut through and balance out some of the saltiness from the stock itself. You want to make sure that if you do add any salt, be very mindful because you are using ham hocks, okay? And I also just added in about 1.5 tablespoons of the Maggi Polio chicken seasoning. I also added some fresh shallots because I just love shallots in mine. I added in the shredded meat from the ham hocks. As you can see, that's not a lot of meat. That's just the way that I like to do mine. Give that a good mix. Again, depending on how tender you like your greens, at this stage, you can allow them to cook anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. If you like a little bit of bite to yours, of course, reduce the time. But you want to make sure that they're not boiling or they're going to get way too soggy. I like to throw 3 slabs of that pork fat right on the top. Allow it to cook to the tenderness of your liking. And baby, when I tell you, you got yourself a nasty pot of southern collard greens, bye. Them right there will put you to sleep. And go on ahead and make sure you got you some cornbread so you can sop up some of that pot liquor. Okay? You're very welcome that I did this for y'all. And no, I didn't do no taste test because ain't nobody got time for that today. I'm a very busy man. Remember, y'all, key things. Clean your damn greens. You're very welcome.